There's two key products that we need for ankle taping. It's our Fix 100 or a 10 centimetre fix. And what we tend to do, and this is just a personal thing, you go to another club, they'll do it differently. We tend to cut it in a square shape, about yay big, which when you pull it off the roll, it has a solid blue line and then four smaller blue lines and then another solid blue line. So we go 2 solid blue lines as our gauge, and that tends to fit most ankles pretty well. So what that does for us, you may think, well, there's no irritation, there's nothing there, why are we doing that? The reason is to help stop tape cuts. Has anyone ever had a tape cut? Yeah, painful, annoying little things that occur because, as good as this tape is, it's got a little serrated edge across the top and the bottom. Now the reason that's there is so that we can tear it. But if you imagine a serrated edge on a soft piece of skin that's getting moved around and sweat and what have you, creates a friction, and that serrated edge rubs and rubs and rubs, it then can cut the skin. Now some will say, just put your tape in the right place and that won't happen. And that can be the case. However, I can tell you from experience that I've had guys who get tape cuts even when the tape's in the right place. So as a stock standard procedure, we always go with putting this on first, as a safety net. So what we need to do is think about our ankle. Here's our lateral malleolus, so our ATFL ligament is situated about here, and that's where you'll get that little bit of swelling and bruising. The movement that it's going to cause it is this movement, so inversion there. So we need to limit that inversion by ensuring she can't get into that full range. She still may be able to do it, but it's the end range that is the issue. So we'll put our fix over the top, and you just stretch that over and smooth that down. That's going to help stop our tape cuts. Now we're going to walk through and do a few steps and talk about it as we go. I'm also going to put one on the back. Any idea why I'd put one on the back over Achilles?
Shoe rubbing?
Could be for shoe rubbing. Tape, yeah. So we're going to walk through some simple steps and give you a basic taping, and then we're going to add to it. And the added part is called a heel lock, which can in turn then cause that tape cut on the Achilles because it's quite sensitive at the back there as well. So the first part that we put down is what we call our anchor. Now we place that approximately a few centimetres above the lateral and medial malleolus. There's no real issue with that where you put that where it's a little bit lower, a little bit higher, providing that you don't then start to wrap it around where the calf musculature is. Because if we leave that there and then she goes out and starts running and moving and kicking footy, what have you, that will then change her biomechanics of that muscle and then could cause her a soft tissue injury as well. So the next point of call is to ensure that her foot's not pointing down. We need to get it up in a relatively neutral or slightly with her toes pulled back towards her. Any idea why I do that?
Anatomical position standing.
Yeah, so anatomical position or position that you stand in, essentially. And if I put tape on while her toes are pointed down, when she then does stand up, it's actually going to be a bit loose and probably not do what we want it to do. So we start with next a stirrup, which we attach medially or on the inside and run over that medial malleolus or that bony point that sticks out on the inside. Underneath the heel and then back up. The thing that I like to do here is I don't try and stick it down and cut it. I'll tear it slightly shorter than what it needs to be and then pull up and then attach it. Now don't forget, people will look at rigid tape and go, oh, it's not sticking. Well, it's got an adhesive in it. It's a zinc oxide adhesive. You need to warm it up a little bit to get it to attach. So you just give it a little rub. Now the reason I'm pulling it up on that lateral side, any idea? Prevent the inversion movement. Yeah, we're essentially pulling back the other way to try and limit that. Next step is to do a second stirrup. Now we slightly overlap that with the first one. Like so.
You apply a fair amount of tension.
Yeah.
On that.
Yep, there's a fair bit of tension there. The tension you apply will be dependent on, is it a new injury? Have they been taped before? How comfortable do they feel with tape? And how much are you trying to stop? Happy with that? Okay, next point is a 6. So starting exactly where you were before on the medial aspect with your stirrups, again underneath. Now instead of going straight up, this time we're coming straight across the front of the joint. And I like to try and get my first one straight over where that ligament would be. So we're essentially going right over the middle of it, again pulling over, ripping, and then getting your tension down. Do you think that's enough? Shaking your head? No? You do it. Why would you do a 6 back the other way? Because that's the way you've been taught. I told you there's going to be variances. Our basic taping, or my basic taping, would be do another 6, but not the other way. Exactly the same. And that's it. That's the basic taping, if you like. So if someone's got a very minor injury, or they've just always taped their ankles but they're not really sure why, which you will hear when you're doing this job, or they've come back from an injury 2 or 3 years ago but they're okay, then we can run with that one. And then we would just lock it off. That should provide enough support. Now if you try and roll in a little bit, she can still do it, but it's going to pull and it's going to stop it. Now if someone's had even a half decent injury, you're exactly right, we're going to go the other way. So now we're going to start on the lateral aspect and come round and do exactly the same thing with our 6, but just back the other way. Does that go against what I'm just trying to stop though, the movement? If I'm trying to stop that inversion, if I then go the other way, is that...
You've already supported it the other way.
Yeah. That's why we do our 2, and our stirrups both going medial to lateral. Now we're just providing that whole ankle joint with some good support. So if we put a second one of those on,
Will you always put a second 6 going the other way from lateral to medial?
not necessarily, no. Our basic would be 2 stirrups, 2 medial to lateral. Then you can start to build on that based on that. So if they need a little bit more support, you go again. And then if they need a little bit more, you go again. And depending on where and how much support they need, you might come slightly down the foot a little bit more, or you might go back a little bit as well, depending on the individual and how they feel. There's a key kind of criteria, if you like, for when you're putting tape on. And one of those is to try and limit creases in the tape. Does anyone, you probably smile and laugh and go, how on earth do you do that? Well, it's about your tension on the tape. And I'll show you a couple of tricks to do that tonight. Crease is this sort of thing. So where you get that happening. Any idea why that's not ideal? Apart from being uncomfortable?
Doesn't provide the right support.
Yeah, it compromises the integrity of the tape in a sense, so it's not giving you the same support. So we try and limit that. If I was happy and that's a standard ankle, that's great, we just lock it off. So where we put our anchor strip at the start, we just put another strip of tape right around that and lock that off. And that should be enough support for in most cases. Now, if we've had a serious ankle injury or we need more support, that's where we add our heel locks. Anyone done heel locks before? Yeah. Tricky or not tricky? Initially they're pretty tricky. Yeah. Anyone else? So the idea, and you'll have to watch this a couple of times if you haven't done it before, and we'll walk around and show you. A heel lock, as its name indicates, essentially locks in around that heel and around that ankle joint, and that stops a hell of a lot of movement. Now when we started with our stirrups and our 6s going medial to lateral, so from the inside to the outside. The thing about a heel lock that can confuse you a little bit is you start medial, for the lateral aspect that is, you start medial but you come across the front of the foot to the lateral. So the side you're trying to protect more, just think I've got to run down that heel or down that side first, and that's where I need to go with my tape. So if we put it across the front, now we're essentially putting it exactly where our 6s are finished. So we're just going in the reverse. Coming over that medial malleolus. Now you can see I'm going to swap hands a couple of times, and that's because it makes it a little bit easier. And the key with heel locks is you need to keep lots of tension on the tape. As soon as you don't have tension, it creases, it folds over on itself and goes all over the shop. So lots of tension. You still might get the odd crease. Down around the back of the heel and the Achilles, underneath where you've come, and then back up to where you started. Everyone see that? Does that feel like it's got a lot more support on there?
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily put a heel lock the other way unless they felt like they really, really needed more support. Any questions?
In determining their granddaughter, she was classified as having a level 1
Yeah.
thickening.
So our very first taping for that sort of injury, I would suggest 2 stirrups, 2 sixes, medial to lateral, lock it off. That's probably all you need. And then to finish off, we just put our locking strip on, which doesn't need to be tight, it's just laid on. Try and keep your creases out. If you want to just, you've probably seen me do that a few times already, it's just to make sure that that adhesive is warming up and it's actually starting to stick a little bit better. Now, what do I need to check? Yeah, so it's pretty good. It's not going purple anyway. That's a bonus, isn't it?
It's not tingling.
It's not tingling. That's also good. Any questions?
When you say medial to lateral,
Yep.
all those words, what does that mean?
Good question. Yeah, and pull me up if I start talking in jargon that you don't understand. Medial to lateral. The medial aspect is the inside or towards the midline of the body. Lateral is the outside. Medial inside, lateral outside is the easiest way to remember it.
Do you check range of motion at all for any both?
I tend not to worry about it, to be honest. Providing that you've kept that foot in a relatively neutral position, you should be pretty good. The thing I will say to that is that when you first tape someone, you want them to hop off, have a walk around, have a run around in front of you to make sure they're comfortable. And it looks from the naked eye that their gait pattern's okay. Guys, yeah, sorry.
So what if they're asking for just sixes, but they want stretch on top? Should you?
It doesn't change a whole lot, but it actually feels kind of good if you want that bit more support. So we've got guys who I put that over the top. I guarantee you. Do they need it or not? Well, that's a whole nother question. We've got guys that we put this over the top because they feel like they want a bit more support, but they don't want the support of the stretch. We've got guys who put this underneath first before we put the rigid on.
Which is dumb.
Thank you, Andrew. Again, because they don't like the feeling of this on their skin and it hurts their skin. That's not going to change the function too much because it's tapered sticking to it. What you might have seen is the foam underwrap tape. It's had various names and I'm not going to repeat them because it's not very politically correct. Underneath the rigid. The problem with that is that it slips around and moves, so therefore the rigid slips around and moves. So is it actually providing the support we need it to? Nah, it's not. So probably harden up, princess, and just get the tape on your skin would be the answer to that. I know it sounds a bit silly. So, in answer to your question, yes, you can put stretch over the top or a blood tape over the top.
All means tape.
You
But
can-
are you better off to do a heel lock?
You're better off to do a heel lock and say, just try this for me. Because at the end of the day, 2 things happen. One, you're probably going to get as much, if not more support. So they're probably going to be better off anyway. 2, you're going to save money in your budget. Sorry, Andrew, that we're not buying as much tape now, but that's the reality of it. And you're not, like I said, on an unlimited budget. However, if they really still feel they want stretch, I'd probably try that first. Because it's more pliable, it conforms
It's
better.
yeah, it'll work around the joint hole. So you know when Matt talked about creases, it's a hell of a lot easier not to crease with that
Yeah.
than it is with the EAB.
And I still crease tape. If I do a continuous sort of ankle wrap with this, I'm still going to get a little crease probably. And at the bottom here, it's probably going to pinch, so I have to pinch it together and cut that little tab off because it annoys me, more so probably than them because I'm a bit OCD with that stuff. But it might if they're standing on it. And I'll show you what I mean by using this as an overwrap because it's easy.
Just so you're aware too, if you struggle with wider tape, use a
Yeah.
50, yeah.
use a 50 mil because it's far easier again. To
So
not-
essentially we're just going to follow the lines of our tape, as in our sixes, and then around the back for our a continuous heel lock if you like. And then it's job done. But what did I say about it pinching at the bottom? Because her foot is a bit smaller, there is a little tab of tape there, which, again, as I said, I'm OCD. It's only that much. But if I was standing on that, that might give me the irrit, so I'd be more inclined just to cut it off as you go.
So every chance something like that can cause a little blood blister as well.
Yeah.
So and that's what creasing will do as well.
At the end of the day, like a lot of things, there is a certain amount of obviously there's quite a lot of research and evidence around taping and what it does and how we do it, but there's probably just as much subjective evidence, so what the person feels and what they feel is comfortable out there as well. So one guy could have exactly the same injury as the next, but he might have 2 stirrups and 2 sixes, and the next bloke might have stirrup sixes, heel locks and stretch over the top. So you've got to kind of just go with the flow in a sense and what they feel comfortable with.
When you're doing that stretch,
Yep.
like I was always taught to do a figure 8.
It kind of is a figure 8, but then it's incorporating the heel lock in it as well. So it encases the whole lot, and it's just a bit quicker.
Just to cover, actually wrapping over the top of the rigid doesn't do anything about the longevity of the rigid lasting through a football
No.
match that can be 2 hours.
And there was some research done, and forgive me, you probably shouldn't take this, but there was some research done quite some time ago that the rigidity in that tape, if I put that on 2 hours before a game, for example, 5 minutes into the first quarter, it's lost something like 60-70% of its rigidity, so its support. So then it comes down to, yes, it's providing the joint with some support, however, it's probably more proprioceptive feedback that it's then providing, which is also a good thing, obviously. Yeah.
The other thing you got to be aware of is how different people perspire at different rates and heavily and by percentage. So I know that I don't know if you've got anyone at Richmond, but I know one of the other clubs that we supply, they've got a fairly heavy sweater who can always re-straps at half time, purely and simply because he just perspires so much that the tape becomes ineffective after about an hour or so.
And we do, and there's 2 ways we also get around that which we haven't shown, and it's the adhesive spray. And there's lots of different ones out there. The one I've found to be one of the most effective is one that comes out of the States by a company called Kramer. It's called Tough Skin in an aerosol, and it seems to be probably the better one that's out there for mine. So that, I think you guys do that, don't you? Yeah. It works really, really well, and it's the one we use all the time. The other thing that's handy to have, and I only learnt this recently, and some of you might already know this, in your kit, so you try and tape someone at quarter time or something and they're sweating and you can't get them to stop sweating and the tape doesn't stick, just a can of like Rexona, like antiperspirant, spray over the area first after you wipe down the towel, and actually stops that a little bit, then you can tape over it and it sticks a bit better. Someone told me that at a conference recently and I nearly fell over because here am I been trying to buy all this other stuff for all these years.
It's probably the Rexona rep.
Yeah, probably. Just not in uniform. So that's essentially our ankle. Any other questions? Is that the same as what you guys have been doing? Yep. Does it help you to know that that's what's happening at the high level and filtering through? What we'd like to do, and we've got plenty of tape and I've cut some fixed squares here so you can have a play with that as well, is actually get it, you don't have to go in pairs because we're a little bit limited for space too, but 3s, 4s, 5s, whatever it is, and use a couple of chairs, or you can double up on this table here. Just have a crack at it. If you've got any questions, now's a good time to actually, while you practice it, and we can talk through those little issues so you can walk away and actually be really comfortable with it. We'll come back, have a chat about that, and then we'll roll on to something around the knee joint and go from there.